Namaste everyone. So I'll just introduce uh, Prabhu Govindaji. His Grace Govindaji is the exponent, of Indian culture and lectures on the insights of ancient Indian texts such as the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Bhagavatam. He has an experience of almost 30 years in Vedic education and counseling. He travels extensively all over the world, sharing his reflective knowledge and wisdom, whether counseling children, guiding families, or mentoring corporate and social leaders. His profound insights are always practical, comprehensible, and relevant to all cross-section of the society. He is also connected to the alternative education system. He is an author of several books, notable being Little Yogi in the Modern City, Money and Mahabharata, Real Sight, and Voice Your Choice. He will share his insights today on the integration between management and leadership, the perspective of Sri Krishna. Prabhuji, thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule, and we invite you for sharing your insights. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Aditya ji, for inviting me for this wonderful conference seminar to share my thoughts on the perspective of Sri Krishna in regards to management and leadership. Generally, when we see management and leadership, we see from an isolative perspective. Management is different and leadership is different. But when we study the perspective of the Mahabharata, specifically the perspective of Krishna, he teaches something, an important principle, the principle of integration. The word yoga is not simply connected to spirituality. Yoga is the word connected to life. When our regular life is separated from spirituality, when spirituality is separated from regular life, that also gives rise to conflict. So therefore, Krishna's perspective is the perspective of integration. I remember listening to a small story. There was a student who was not interested in mathematics, especially the the number mathematics. For him, the mathematics has to be experiential. So his father, a lawyer, was teaching him maths, and he asked this boy, he said, how many mangoes can you get for 40 rupees? If the mango cost 5 rupees per mango. It was a very easy sum. But the child was thinking rather than answering the question. So the father was losing his temper. He was a criminal lawyer, right? And then he shouted, he screamed at his child. He said, how can you be so dumb? It's a easy answer. Now, very interesting. The boy asked his father, my dear dad, are the mangoes ripe or raw? He said, are the mangoes ripe or raw? And the father says, it doesn't matter. I need to know how many you get mangoes for 40 rupees. And the child said, my dear father, it doesn't matter how many. I need to know whether they're ripe or raw. It's a very deep lesson in this story. The child was interested in experience, and the father was interested in teaching mathematics. Now, leadership is all about giving good experience, and management is all about getting things done. Management worries about systems. Leadership worries about feelings. Are they against each other? unfortunately we create a distinction between the two. But if you see life, management and leadership, they are not against each other. Without the management, the leadership simply remains poetic. And without the leadership, management becomes brutal, violent, doesn't have sustainability. And therefore, the Indic thought, the thought of the Mahabharata in regards to life is twofold. And this can be understood very simply by the four pillars of Indian thought process, which is called as dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma and moksha is related to experience. I'll explain what dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And artha and kama is related to, the kind of, we measure dharma and artha, kama and artha by number. Dharma is a natural law of life, whether it is the nature or the nature of the person. Dharma is the integration of nature of a person with a nature, the universal nature. Dharma is the integration in regards to our interaction with the world. It's a relationship bound dharma. And moksha is a concept of continuous liberation. The mango has to be ripe, right? It's a continual freedom which concludes in eternal freedom. On the other hand, artha and kama, artha is basically you are judged. In this world, in the biological world, you are judged by your resources. It doesn't matter which system you follow, whether it is socialism, whether it is communism, whether it is capitalism, you are respected because of your power. Now, this is a very interesting concept. Many times, the so-called good people, they make the statement, it doesn't matter what is your background, it doesn't matter what you are, there is no distinction between a beggar and a wealthy person, because both are human beings, both have feelings. That is good. But in the real world, it is very simple. The biological reality is what? The biological reality is the survival of the fittest. That is management. And what is the cultural reality? The cultural reality is cooperation of everybody. They are not against each other. And therefore, one of the great philosopher in the Western world, he made this interesting statement. What is it? He said, the democracy, what does it do? It gives wrong kind of equality. But the life is functioning based upon power and resources. So when power and resources are separated from leadership, it creates violence and exploitation. So therefore, in the Mahabharata, a very interesting episode when Draupadi, the great lady, was about to be disrobed. Right, she was about to be disrobed. Then she asked this question to the great Bhishma. The name of Bhishma had come. An interesting personality, interesting character. She asked this question to Bhishma. Bhishma, please tell me, where is dharma? Where is justice? And Bhishma had tears in his eyes. He was crying tears. And he gave an answer which is very painful to hear. But it is a reality. It is a biological reality. Bhishma, while crying tears, he told Draupadi, He said, you know what? He said, justice is there depending upon who has the power. He said, the justice is defined by Duryodhan, Dushasan, Karna, and Shakuni because they have the power, my dear Draupadi. It's a very painful answer. And after the gambling match, the entire course of the Pandavas changed. The Pandavas did not change their character, but rather they added smartness into their life. The great Chanakya Panditi explained that good people without smartness will be exploited however good they are. It happens in the homes also. Very simple, when a mother is very unconditional towards her children, mother is unconditional towards her husband. I was just speaking before this talk to some family, and the daughter was complaining about her grandfather. And the father and the mother agreed, yes, he actually dominates and is conditioned to dominate. He is not a bad person, he is not a villain, but is dominating to such an extent. Why is he dominating? One reason, because the son and the daughter-in-law are extremely unconditional in serving their father-in-law and father. So please hear this: unconditional love in relationship generally turns into exploitation by other party, consciously or unconsciously. It is not about
Very
the intention what matters.
excellent.
What matters is the consequences of such a relationship only causes exploitation. And therefore, in this world, the so-called unconditional love can be exploited or it can give rise to slavery. And therefore, good people, when they become persistent to remain good at the cost of becoming smart, they destroy their own self and they destroy those who are very closely related to them. In the Mahabharata, again I will continue this part. Duryodhan, if you study the psychology of Duryodhan in the very first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he tells his teacher Dronacharya. Now, Duryodhan was a great leader. In what sense was he great? He knew how to control people. He could dominate people. And the dominated people would not want to remain free from him. And therefore, Duryodhan makes a statement to his teacher Dronacharya. He says, all these people who are in my army, Madarte Tyaktva Jivita, he says, all these people who are in my army are willing to lay down their lives. They are willing to lay down my life. Now, when somebody is willing to lay down their life for a leader or a manager, and the manager has a narcissistic happiness about it, you know that there is no sensitivity in regards to reciprocation. Is it possible to work with such people unconditionally? It is not possible. So therefore, management by nature follows the principle of Duryodhan. Use people for the project. Use people for success of a company. Use people for the success of a nation. Here, on the other hand, Krishna, he told his chariot driver, Daruka, he said, you know what, Arjun, you know what, Daruka, Arjun he can actually cut off his every limb of his body. He can remove flesh from his body and give it to me. That kind of affection he has. Krishna did not stop there. He said, I will also do the same to Arjuna. That is called as unconditional relationship. So what Krishna did to the Pandavas, he said, my dear Pandavas, being good is good. But along with being good, you have to add the concept of being smart. If the smartness is not there, goodness is simply persistently getting exploited. Therefore, in the management or the Indian thought process, there are this dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma, as I said, universal law. Moksha is freedom. Artha is collecting resources. And kama is basically enjoying the resources. In my book called as Money and Mahabharata, right, there are spiritualists and there are materialists. The spiritualists, sometimes the pure spiritualists say money is the evil of everything. And the materialist will say without money, nothing will move forward. They create contradiction between the two. Now, the great Narad Muni, those who are familiar with this name, Narad Muni, he explained this to Yudhishthir Maharaj. Very interesting. He said, those who want to grow and contribute, a contributor has to be selfish. Without resources, what can you contribute? The first principle for the contributor has to be selfish. He has to have a self. Without the self, you cannot be selfless. You can cry for others, but people are not hoping you only cry for them. They want you to do something tangible. And he explained, when you are selfish, and if you are dharmically selfish, then your resources increases. He said, when the resources increase, what you are supposed to do? Is there a question we are supposed to? Somebody raised their hand.
Yeah, Anita ji wants to ask something.
Yeah.
If it's okay, Prabhuji, or should we take
it's okay.
questions?
I'm okay. I'll be more happy to interact like this.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Anita ji, go
Thank you
ahead,
so
please.
much. Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to ask you. And it's very thought-provoking session. And yeah, I have something to ask about unconditionality, as you say, because when you say we have to be selfish and love cannot be unconditional. So my question is, because I just remember one slok from Ramcharitmanas by Tulsidas ji, which says that nirmal man mohe man bhava mohe chal kapat chidrana bhava, which means that for the audience from different countries, which means that a person who is simple and naive can reach me, and a person who has some ulterior motive or some selfish reasons may not reach me. And God, and when the person is unconditional and selfless, so there is some invisible hand which helps the person to reach the destiny, and it is being taught to me by my mother, this slok. So once you said this, I remember that slok. So what is your take in this context? Thank you.
Therefore, there is absolutely not a problem. There is no contradiction. What Tulsidas is saying, this shloka is in relationship to your connection to spiritual progress. In the material world, where the principle is, unfortunately, is the survival of the fittest, you don't give up your goodness, but you have to be smart also. Again, you see, observe in this world. If you pamper children, There is a difference between loving children unconditionally and pampering children. So what we call as love is many times is pampering, and that becomes a counterproductive. I'll give a simple example. When there is only one child, only one daughter, she is raised as a princess, and there is another boy is raised as a prince. Imagine when they come together, they are expecting unconditional service from other party without contributing to each other's relationship. Why? Because they never experience that sharing and caring. They only experience one-sided caring. So therefore, as I said, for a material life, we need dharma. And for a spiritual life, we need shraddha or a faith. What is visible requires logic. What is invisible requires giving up the logic. And therefore, because we are discussing Krishna, even Lord Ramachandra, I can show you many places how he taught the army of the Sugriva to be smart also on the battlefield. Right? How did they destroy Meghanath? They didn't go declare, how did Lord Ram made friendship with Vibhishan and use Vibhishan to find out many secrets? Right? So similarly, Lord Krishna here, he is not asking you to cancel your good qualities. He's saying add the flavor of smartness, because people who are smart and good can contribute to the growth of the society. People are only smart will exploit, and people who are only good get exploited. So therefore, the foundation of any behavior has to be dharma only. So therefore, management and leadership, when it is integrated, leadership thinks about sustainability. Management thinks about success. So when success and sustainability are integrated, then there is a growth for longer time. And therefore, in the Indic thought, let us take this creation as a company, right? This entire creation, all 7 continents, and then earth, water, fire, air, ether, is like a byproduct, or they are raw materials for running the company. Now, whenever there is a decline, wherever there is incoherency in the company, what happens? We look for a better performing CEO who is smart, who is sharp, who is transparent. We are willing to pay bigger salary to bring them so that they can regroup the company. So now this material creation does go through different kinds of transformation. And therefore, the supreme Brahman, according to the Indic thought, therefore, one should not never undermine the material creation, saying that, oh, this is the land of death. What is there here? This is not the place we want to be staying here. After all, death is the ultimate reality of this place. This is a very negative thought. The positive thought is very simple. We are not eternal doesn't mean that the creation is not. The creation will continue to stay. This is the beauty where Krishna harmonizes being a mother, being a father, being a son, being a daughter, being a wife, being a husband. These positions are time bound. But motherhood, fatherhood, wifehood, husbandhood, these are almost eternal reality. I being a leader, I being a manager, I being a servant is not permanent. But the servicehood, the administrativehood, the fatherhood is permanent. So fatherhood requires a theology, philosophy, and leadership. And father, mother, son, this requires also, along with the foundation of management, along with the foundation of leadership, it requires the art, the skill to get it done. So therefore Krishna, he comes to this world again and again, according to Gita. Yada yadai dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srjamiham. What does it mean? Whenever there is incoherency in the operating principle of this world, to fix it. So therefore management is also given importance, and leadership is also given importance. Just like that boy was looking for experience and father was looking for success, result. It is not that there is a conflict between the father and the son. There is an integration between the father and the son. Therefore, when we are looking for a perfection in spiritual culture, there you need a simple heart. But when you're looking for the legacy in this world, you need a smart heart. When there's a smartness and goodness are combined, let us take the example of the Pandavas only. After the gambling match was over, the Pandavas realized, Yudhishthira Maharaj realized that if you are simply submissive and good, you'll be exploited even if you become greatest of the king. But if you are smart and good, even if you don't have anything, you can move forward in life. And what happened with the Pandavas? It's very interesting. When they came to the forest, they did not live a life of recluse. The forest does not only denote that one should live there doing nothing but meditation. Forest for the Pandavas denotes limitless diversity. The forest denotes integrating all kinds of diversities. That became the place of learning. For your information, Yudhishthir also learned gambling from a great teacher. In case next time if they ask for another challenging match, he could face Shakuni. But did Yudhishthir become a gambler? No, gambling became a tool for him, but he never became a gambler. Diplomacy became a tool for him, but he did not become a low-class politician. And therefore, the beauty of Krishna's management system, he says enjoying is very easy. Giving up enjoyment is also very easy. But enjoying and at the same time not enjoying is a difficult challenge, but that is what life is. And therefore he gave this beautiful concept as Nishkama Karma. There is a famous management, a book on mindset. This lady, the author explains, those who have a destination in the mind, they give up their destination when their journey is in difficulty. And those who are in journey but do not have proper plan, they become reckless. So we need to have a sankalpa or certain kind of affirmation, but one should not be attached to the affirmation. The Pandavas fought the war on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but in the entire Gita, spirituality does not guarantee you victory. But spirituality or dharmic management guarantees you satisfaction. In the entire Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not promise Arjuna that certainly he will be victorious. He doesn't promise that. In the entire Bhagavad Gita, other than in the 11th chapter, nowhere he guarantees success. But what he guarantees is that because it is your nature, because it is your dharma, whether you lose or win, you have to engage in your duty. There is a greater chances if you continue to remain in the journey, you'll be successful. That is the beauty of harmonizing strategy, which is management centric for victory, and leadership, which is an experience centric. Therefore, whether it is original Chinese model, there is a concept called as the sage within and king without. Similarly, in Indian thought process, there is a concept called as king without and sage within, which is called as Rajarshi. The word Rajarshi is very simple. Raja is action bound. Rishi is a reflection bound. When there is a reflection and action, which gives rise to nishkama karma. Nishkama karma doesn't mean that you do not have ambitions, but you are not obsessed by the results. All of us, we have played the snake and ladder game. If you understand the snake and ladder game, the snake and ladder game should never stop, because life is like that snake and ladder game. Action is the responsibility of every living entity. Sometime you go up, sometime you come down from 98. Nowadays, the snake and ladder game, because the children cannot handle, they have reduced the snake size. Oh, this is too much for the children to handle. Pampering. 96, you pray, you desperately make contemplation when you throw your dice. From 96, when you come down, you directly come to 8. That is life. Up and down and up. So if you are attached to the result, you will stop playing the game. If you stop playing the game, there is less likely that we will reach the destination. But if we keep on playing our game, whether up or down, we will reach our destination. And therefore, smartness in life becomes very important principle. When that smartness is there, the Pandavas, in one sense, I remember reading this book by one famous management person, Difficulty of Being Good. In one sense, it's very nicely written, but the problem is that what you define as good. There were limitations in Duryodhan, and there was limitation in Yudhishthira also. Sometimes people make this statement, oh, even he had challenges. What is the point? No, Duryodhan had limitless limitations to the extent of becoming nasty. And Yudhishthira also had limitation to the extent of becoming a human. Right? There is a difference being a nasty and being a human. The humans will have limitation. So increasing their smartness to contribute to the growth of a society is the foundational principle of life. And therefore selfishness, I was sharing about Narad Muni. Now Narad Muni explained this very nicely. He said, when you are selfish, you can increase your resources. Aditya, I'll take your question. So just a minute. Narad Muni explained, he said, grow your resources. The maintenance of resources requires continuous growth of your resources. Maintenance doesn't happen if you do not grow. And the third, he explained, enjoy your resources. Enjoy your resources. And when you enjoy, you also understand those who are not getting to enjoy. And therefore share your resources. What is the cycle? Grow, and part of growth is maintenance. Enjoy your resources, and contribute your resources. Therefore, those who experience happiness, they can share happiness. What kind of happiness? The dharmic happiness what the Pandavas were experiencing. Aditya, you want to share, ask something?
Yeah, Prabhu, my question is, and this is a question that a lot of people face who are dealing with spirituality. So, is spirituality different from world negation? Does spirituality means that we should not work hard? Is it not about earning profits? Is it not about competing? Is it about going in a cave separately, in silence, in isolation? I should remove myself away from conflict. This should I always face injustice? So, if you can touch on these ideas, these confusions.
Yes, very. Actually, if you see, unfortunately, the conflict is there in the understanding of people, but not in the original thoughts. Now, I'll give you an example. The wealth is personified in the form of Lakshmi. Those who have seen the picture of Lakshmi Devi, she is standing with blessings of giving you a limitless gold coin. Lakshmi always stays next to Lord Narayan. He is the personification of Dharma, and Lakshmi is personification of Artha. One time, the wife of Krishna, Rukmini, asked this question. She asked Lakshmi Devi, where do you reside? Very interesting. Lakshmi said, those who are satisfied, I don't stay with them. She said, satisfaction is the enemy of the progress. You may be stunned to hear this. Then, it is explained as because we lack satisfaction, therefore we suffer. So the answer comes, satisfaction is the sign of the mendicant living in the forest. But the king and the family man, when he is caring for his family members, he should think of growth. Therefore, spirituality and materialism should not be separated. From the Gita's perspective, the entire creation is the energy of God. Right? Our work, what we do, is also divinity only. So therefore, when there is a foundation of leadership, then the management does not become brutal. It is ambitious but non-exploitative. Therefore, we see the Pandavas. The Pandavas went to the forest, but they did not become mendicant. One time when Lord Ramachandra was in the forest, Mother Sita asked this question. He said, why are you basically attacking the evil people? You have come to the forest. Ram said, I have come to the forest, but I have not become forest dweller. I still remain part of the administrative society, and it is my responsibility to contribute in a meaningful way. Therefore, I explained, your inner self should be detached, but your external self should be involved. That is yoga. Yes, ma'am, you have a question? Barbara?
Yes, Your Grace. So here's my question. In the Vedic scriptures that you're referring to, what is the responsibility to the community? You've talked quite a lot about the family. I'd like to know about the community.
Yeah, what is community? Community is nothing but extension of family only. Right? So, but it all begins with you first. You are the self. I always ask this question to many times, especially those who are dedicated people, especially mothers. And if they are working mothers, and they're also mothers, they take double responsibility of their family. Right? And generally you hear them speak, oh God, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. How can anybody work beyond their capacity? It doesn't matter how nice person you are. It doesn't matter how much dedicated you are, because dedication comes from emotions, but work comes from our capacity, right? When you overwork, you are basically exhausting your capacity. You are sincere, but you'll say, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, right? So I ask this question to ladies when I counsel: what is your identity? Is your identity connected to your children? I'm a mother of these children. Is your identity connected with your husband alone? Is your identity connected to your parents alone? I ask this question: where is your self? Without yourself, you cannot have any identity, the relationship identity. So therefore, how the Indian thought works: first focus on yourself. When your self start expanding, then you keep adding different relationships, husband, wife, children, and that self grows, then it becomes family. When that self grows, it becomes a community. When that self grows, it becomes a town, city, state, country, universe, right? So therefore, asking people to contribute without having their self is nothing but exploitation of their self. And they happen in an extreme dynamic way. I remember when we were growing, because we had many, siblings. So mother would teach, if you are eating something, you eat and share with others also. If an apple, cut that apple into 4 parts, give it to your brother and sister. You're drinking water, you drink also and give it to others also. So it is happening simultaneously. It is not that you have to starve to serve. And it is not that you have to be obsessed in enjoyment so that you can give up enjoyment and serve others. These are all seamlessly happening. So therefore, we don't need to be a great well-wisher of the universe. We have to be our own well-wisher, and along with that, those who are close to us, if we start sharing, we expand our horizon to contribute more and more and more. But in all this, the self does not get cancelled. It continues to exist. That is an important principle of the thought of Gita. You exist so that you can contribute to others, which is called as Swadharma and Loka Sangraha. Therefore, active involvement in the world with a inner indifference, which is called as Rajarshi, makes Arjuna out of us, who is enterprising, who is resourceful, and who is also kind.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Aditya ji, you wanted to.
I was saying amazing. So very well put. Professor Noswam, you want to ask something else, ma'am?
What do you? Hello?
Professor Barbara, you want to ask something else, ma'am? Okay.
Thank you for that answer.
Therefore, Gita basically Krishna's perspective is, he says he harmonizes between life and beyond life. He harmonizes between self and selflessness. He harmonizes between, leadership and management. He harmonizes between smartness and goodness. There should not be conflict between goodness and smartness. In fact, he harmonizes between compassion and anger. It's very interesting. Anger has been overly, slandered, and compassion has been overly glorified. Compassion and anger is like a salt, and compassion is like a sugar. Overconsumption of sugar also causes problem, and overconsumption of salt also causes problem. The salt is easily recognizable, right? Right amount of salt is very much required. Therefore, anger appropriately used creates a good system, and compassion appropriately used creates a wonderful system. Therefore, there is no conflict between violence and non-violence. There is no conflict between compassion and anger. That is the beauty of yoga. The beauty of yoga, it has the power to reconcile all the opposite. Therefore, leadership and management, they are not opposite to each other. They are basically like a couple who have a great married life, married for almost like eternal. No? Aditya ji, anything else, or we can stop?
Yeah. Any questions anyone wants to ask related to the topic that Prabhuji said, or if you have any doubts, any queries you want to ask, any topic related to the Indian or Eastern philosophy, or anything that you want to seek clarification, most welcome.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. Firstly, it's just such wonderful wisdom. So thank you for that. And I guess the one thing that I sort of, when you were talking about to not, one should not lose the self. It's not about losing, the self does not get cancelled. I guess what came up in my mind is, the Western, I guess, philosopher, psychiatrist Carl Jung has had a very similar view, right? That ultimately it's about individuation. It is about becoming an individual, and that is how we find our purpose and our contribution in the world. So, yeah.
Very much. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Without that, therefore, ego, without the ego, you cannot contribute, which is called as astitva. In Sanskrit terminology, it's astitva. Therefore, Chanakya explains the spiritual teacher should be satisfied, but not the king. He says the satisfied king ruins the country, and dissatisfied monk destroys his own self. So therefore, we have to be monk inside and king outside. That is called as Rajarshi. Therefore, universally, all natural human beings will only operate on the principle of how the nature functions. In between, some philosopher, when they experience some kind of pain, some kind of circumstantial reality, they give certain isolation. But otherwise, the life is very much as you explained, and that is self, finding the purpose and contribution, which Gita says Swadharma and Loka Sangraha.
I've got another question.
Yes.
I wonder if you could elaborate more on the idea of a monk inside and a king outside.
Yes. So that is the concept which is Gita's greatest thrust, which is called as Nishkama Karma. Nishkama means, generally what happens, like when you're playing the game of the snake and ladder, when you're obsessive with the result, when the result does not come according to your expectation, it gives rise to frustration, and frustration gives rise to withdrawal from the game itself. Or if you are successful, it gives rise to intoxication of success, and that makes you become less focused in your next game. So therefore you experience the success as much as it requires. Don't make a big story of your success. Similarly, when there is a pain, we cannot deny the pain. If the tears are rolling from your eyes, let them roll, because that is part of human existence. But keeping the tears as a stock and bringing that story repeatedly again and again, that also stops our growth. So therefore, monk means has the power to experience the pain, but not stop for the next action. The reflection is the side of monkhood inside, and the action side is the king outside. So when we do that, there is a greater chances of our being successful. Those who work for the sake of working focused, they got the Nobel Prize. But if you begin your journey with the Nobel Prize only, and if you don't get it, you get frustrated. So therefore, in the Indian thought, why children is to play? Why play is so important? Because play teaches us the detachment. People are sweating, they are working very hard, the sportiveness giving them the great desire to win, but when they lose, they're able to play the next game also. So play teaches us one should be sportive in life. Right, when it teaches us sportiveness. So therefore, that is the beauty of monk and king: reflection within and action without.
Thank you. It's great.
So Aditya, you will stop here. Thank you for giving me opportunity to come and present here.
This is one of the many talks, Prabhuji. It was a great talk, and hopefully we'll invite you for a lot of doubts and queries, because you have a unique way of explaining. And I'm yet to see a monk who tells the worldly people to be more practical and worldly. You are a unique monk in that aspect. So thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for taking out time.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody, once again.